Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Cedar Point.
Good evening.
Another lovely day. This is session 3. We're going to talk about upwind sailing. If anybody was on the Dave Dellenbaugh call last night or Monday night, he talked about strategy. He talked about tactics. We're not talking about tactics today. Tactics is what you do in the presence of other boats and how do you deal with other boats. We'll touch on it, but we're not going to go into detail. We're going to do more strategy. How do you get to the windward mark first? But before we get started in that, let's talk a little bit about what we did last week. Last week, we talked about starting. What were the 4 principles or the 4 goals for a good start?
On time.
Ooh, we got one. What's number 2?
Full speed.
Full speed. Oh man, what's cooking here?
Clean air.
What's number 3?
Favorite end.
Favorite end. What was number 4?
Clear air.
Clear air. And to quick go over it, why is it important to be on time? When the gun goes off, boom, you're right over the line. You're not early. Early is not on time. Early is early. And late is late. If you're early, you have to go back and start again. You're giving up free time to everybody else on the race course. If you're late, if you're 30 seconds late, you're giving up 30 seconds. So on time is important. Full speed, why is that important?
You don't need to catch up speed.
If you're messing around on the starting line, you can be on time and stopped. That's really slow. By the time you get started, it's all free time you're giving to everybody else. You're giving the rest of the fleet free time. And whether you're in one design, you're just giving them boat lengths ahead of you. In handicap, perf racing, you're giving them minutes, seconds and minutes, free. Favorite end. Why is that important? Well, if it's favored by more than a boat length,
Gives you an advantage.
you want to be closer to the windward mark because the favored end is always closer to the windward mark. Clear air? Well, clear air is important for what? Come on, tell me.
Keeping the acceleration
Speed,
going.
boat speed. Boat speed's important. If you're not going full potential of boat speed, you're just giving it away. Now, we're going to talk today about tacking, and you can give it away tacking too. But we'll talk about that. What else did we talk about last week? Pretty much covered most of the starting. We talked about the flags, the signals,
Sequence.
sound signals. Which is prevalent, or which is what's the word I'm looking for? Which is more important, the sound signal or the flag? Flag. Which is more reliable? Sound. I've been on a lot of race committees. Every once in a while, you get on a race committee, or maybe John Cook's race committee, or Dick Dackleberry's race committee. They have the same person doing flags all the time. The flags are perfect. Flags are perfect. The flags are perfect. But on a regular Wednesday night, you'll have better flags. But on a Saturday or Sunday, when it's different people that don't do it all the time, the flags won't be perfect. The flags will always be a few seconds late. And that's just reality. No one wants to be late. No one tries to be late. Everybody cares about being on time, but just the reality of it's hard to time, unless you're doing it a lot, it's hard to time when to start pulling on that flag. If you wait till the sound signal to pull on the flag, what's happening with the flag? It's late. You got to do your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's up, right? But that you learn in race committee, and hopefully we have a lot of race committee things going on this year. That'll be better. But what's more prevalent is what the rules say. You go by the flag, not the sound. Now, what else with the sound did we talk about that wasn't that made a difference?
Distance is the
Sound
starting
speed.
line.
How far you were away from that sound signal. If you're a quarter mile away, 600 yards, it's going to be a couple of seconds late because your eyeballs see at the speed of light, right? Because that's what the light comes and reflects off your eyeballs from when the sound signal goes up. Light travels at 182,000 miles a second, or I forget the number. But sound is 1,100 feet per second. It's a big difference. So just remember that if you're far away, you're going to get a late signal on your watch. Timing, preparation, those are all other things that we talked about last week. All right, that's enough of that. We're talking about upwind this week. Now, what's the most important thing when we start our upwind leg that we know, or that we should know?
Where we're going.
Where we're going? Which side of the course is favored? Do we want to go right? Do we want to go left? Here's the starting line. There's a lot of ripples in the water over here, and it's glass over here. Which way are we going to go? You're going to go right. So you come off the starting line, and you planned your start, because we did planning last week too. So we're planning our upwind, we want to go right. So we started at the boat, we tack over and we go right. Start on starboard, we tack over to port, we go right. We want to get to right. The puffs may be coming from the right faster, right? But what if the wind's shifting? Which way is the wind shifting? We did our homework before the start. We know that the wind is shifting right 10 degrees and then back left 10 degrees, and it's doing it every 15 minutes. Well, where are we in that 15 minutes? It makes a difference on where you should be going, all right? If we know if it's shifting to the right, which way do I want to go? Left or right? Well, left will feel, let me grab one of my boats from the back here. Left will feel closer to the wind, right? But as the wind shifts, left is further away. What is that called? Mark stays in the same place. It's a lift. That's right. That's a lift. So we have lift. That's our bow point closer to the mark. Now what if the wind shifts the other way?
Header.
It's a header. Now, does it matter if I'm on this tack or what we call it?
Yeah.
It has a relationship to the mark. Mark's not moving. If it's shifting if the wind is shifting so that your bow point's closer to the mark, you're on the lifted tack. If it's shifting so your bow is further from the mark, you're on the headed tack. Right? So that's constant. I mean, it's moving, but that's a constant thing. And now if the wind starts to shift back, right? The wind shifts this back this way. Wind shifts to the left, and I'm over here, I'm going this way, right? If I'm over here, I was going this way, then I go this way. So I'm getting lifted towards the mark. So it's a relationship between you and the mark. Which is the fastest way to get to the mark? Sailing lifts or headers? Lifts. You sail, if you sail a lift, say we go off on starboard and we're lifted. Then the wind shifts to the right, we tack. Wind shifts to the left, we tack again. Wind shifts to the right, we tack. And this is gentle. These are not 90-degree angles. They're a little bit bigger. But the distance, point to point, is one thing. If we do the opposite, let's get another color. And we come off, and we do this. That's the opposite. Right? We're sailing all the headers. We sail all the headers, what happens? We're sailing a much longer distance. These legs from here to here, from here to here, from here to here is a much longer distance. And if you're sailing a longer distance, does it take you more time or less time to get there? More time. So we want to sail what? We want to sail the lift upwind. It's closer to the mark. Now, when do we planned our upwind strategy before the start, right? Not during the start. During the start, you got other things to worry about. But before the start, we plan our start. We plan our first upwind leg. Do we plan the downwind leg at the same time?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. We may think about it because maybe there's current going this way here, and on this side there's current going that way. So if I'm on a lift, I want to go right, there's more wind, all the puffs are coming from over there, right? A lot of times the puffs will come and the wind will shift a little bit, and then the puff will die and it'll go back. Then the puff will come and it'll shift a little bit, and it could be one way or the other. So we will want to stay right if that's the case. If the wind and shifts are on this side, we'll want to stay left. So if we want to stay right, we're going to position ourselves to do so. We're not going to, if you start here and you want to go right, what's the problem?
Legs to left.
Well, you have all the other boats.
You want to go right. Start off at the pin, starboard tack, starboard tack, starboard tack. Leaves the big boat. And we're the big boat. We want to go right. These boats are all going, keep going. Can we go right? We're pinned. Right? So if you want to go right, now you may be wrong. You may be wrong. You may have miscalculated something and everybody's going left for a reason. You have to think about that. But if you want to go right because you're the smartest guy out there, like John is, I seen him go right and everybody goes left. And he finishes half hour before everybody else. And it's one design. If John wanted to go right, he'd probably start here. He'd give up that half a boat length on that side. If he was favored over here by half a boat length, he'll start here, he'll go and he'll tack. He'll be the first one to tack. He's the first one in the better air. He's in more pressure. So he's going to be the first one to the mark. And he'll play the shifts. Right? You still have to play the shifts. You don't want to sail headers. Do you want, as soon as the wind shifts to the right, do you want to go that second? Well, no, because you don't know if it's going to stay there. Is it just a 10-second puff that shifts the wind over, or a 20-second puff? Then you tack, and then you find out, oh, now we're back in the header. Then we got to tack again. That's costly. How many boat lengths do you give up tacking a big boat?
Just a minute. 3 or 4.
3, 4. In a small boat, in a laser, none. You're freer in a smaller boat. In college lasers, they're allowed to come out of attack faster than they go into it. But us regular folks that aren't in college sailing, that's not allowed. Is it policed? Maybe. If you do it too often, they may say something to you. But if you want to go right, go right. Make your plan to go right and stick to your plan. Why do you want to stick to your plan? Because you have reasons for that plan. They may be wrong, but you won't learn unless you stick to your plan. All right? If you stick to your plan, you said, I think everything's going this way, and you go this way, and everybody goes left, and you're last, well, you know you weren't right for one reason or another. Maybe it was the current. Right? There was current coming against you here, and it was with you over here, and it was a knot. You know, you're in a river somewhere, and it's a knot. You know, out here, you don't usually get, you can get a knot, but not always. But even a half a knot with the current, or half a knot against the current is a knot. So if you're doing 4 knots over ground and somebody else is doing 5, who's going to get there first? Guy doing 5. So is current important? Is it important in your plan? Especially out here, when we go, most of the time we go from left to right crossing Long Island Sound. Which way is the current running? For the most part, it's running east and west. All right? The current's going, you know, from one end of Long Island to the other and back. In 6 hour, 14-minute cycles. And that changes from where you are on the planet. But around here, that's about what it is. So, if you want to go right, because you think you go right, go right. Try it. Test your knowledge. I mean, everybody here is new. Nobody here, as a newbie to racing, is expected to win every race. Right? If you did, man, you're a prodigy. I didn't even do that. John didn't do that either. He told me. What else is important going upwind? What else is important?
So let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
So let's say we start going and we don't know how it's shifting yet, or we already know how it's shifting before we start, right?
You don't know how it's shifting because you got out there late and you couldn't figure it out?
Right.
You'll feel it. You got to look at the compass. Someone's got to look at the compass.
Yeah.
Right?
Before we start, we need to make sure.
Well, you go on starboard tack, you get a number. You go on port tack, you get another compass heading, right?
Yeah.
You can do that 2 or 3 times, you'll get a change. But what's a good indication for you're in Div 5, right? Div 4 is faster boats. We start first. Look at what the faster boats are doing. They're going to be further up the course quickly. You may get off to a slow start doing that, but you'll say, hey, how come they're going that way? You know, you look at the Swan 45, Gemini, and they're steaming up the course. Now, does that mean you're going to be steaming up the course like them if you're going the same direction? No. But you know that they're doing something. And then you have the other boats that come by. You have Redemption, the IMX 40. See what they're doing. They should be ahead of you.
So what about you? Do you pay attention before the start? You pay attention on the shift?
Yes, I pay
Or
attention.
you start and then
Now,
you see when
before
it
the
shifts,
start,
you time it.
if we're the first start, before the start, I'll do readings left and right, and we'll make
Before you
notes of
start.
them, and we'll say, okay, every time we're on port tack, we're at 240, and then the next time we're on port tack, we're at 220. Like, okay, there's a change. What was the time difference? You know,
So
15
before
minutes,
start,
20 minutes.
So before start, you start what, half an hour before, and
You
you do a
start
few
going,
rounds?
you do upwind, you go upwind a couple of times, you come back downwind. You go upwind, and maybe you come down. You don't get too far away from the starting line, right? So you'll practice going upwind. The green boat's your first time, the blue boat's the second time, the yellow boat's the third time. What's happening here? The first time you went, you were at this angle. Second time you went, it was a lift. The third time you went was a header, maybe a little bit more. Right? So it's going, the wind's shifting back and forth. Does it always shift back and forth? Sure. Remember we talked about last week, someone asked about the port tack start, port end, port tack start? But only if you can figure the shift out and nobody else can. Because it's risky. And if you're the slowest boat in your fleet, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're even with everybody in your fleet, maybe you see something that they didn't. I've pulled off a couple of coups over the years, you know, where I saw something and I was the only one to see it, and I snuck over there and made out like a bandit. I've tried to do it a couple of times and didn't quite make it. That's a little slow, because then you have to duck the boats coming on starboard tack, because you're on port tack.
When you say you saw something, what might you see that would?
The shift. Maybe I was paying attention to the shift. And I said, okay, you know, those shifts are 10 minutes apart. We're 5 minutes into the shift, and the line is square. 5 minutes from now, I expect the wind to shift
To the left.
to the right some more.
So how do you calculate if it's
Or to the left some more. So now, when I come up this way to the starting line, I'm pointed higher, because I'm on the left, and I can get across the fleet, because the rest of the fleet is on a header.
how do you calculate that every tack, like you said, we're going to lose 2-3 boat lengths? How do you calculate if it's worse to tack or just wait it out and
Experience, knowing your boat, knowing how your boat reacts, knowing how long it takes your boat to go, you know, 10 boat lengths. Tacking
And
is
it
costly.
depends-
Remember I said I don't tack within a minute and a half to the start? Or definitely a minute. Sometimes a minute and a half, because it takes too long to get up to speed.
Yeah.
I want to be at full speed. So you got to know how long it takes you to get from point A in your boat to point B.
So basically, I mean, the closer they are, the shifts, the more
Right.
time you're gonna lose.
If it's 2 degrees left and right, it's not real an
Yeah,
advantage.
not good.
Okay? If it's 5 degrees, it's a little advantage, but if it's 10 or 15 degrees, it's a big advantage to be on the proper tack and on the right side, on the correct side of the line. So we're going to go upwind, and we're going to cross the whole fleet. Right? Because everybody else is sailing this way. What do we get when what do we do when we get all the way over here? Let's draw a little diagram. Get some of my tools here. You got the wind. You got the windward mark. We want to get there first. That's our goal. That's our goal. Does the fastest boat always get there first? No. Does the best sail boat on that leg get there first? A lot of times. I mean, there's certain things you can't make up as far as speed. I mean, a bad sailing boat that races -18, like the Swan 42, is probably still going to beat you. But if it's a mile course, they may have to give you 2 minutes. If this is a mile between the starting line and here, they got to give you 2 minutes. They're -18 and you're 90. All right? If you get around that mark right behind them, 10 seconds behind them, are you ahead or behind? you're ahead. Even though you're behind, you're ahead in time. And then you gotta stay ahead in time, right? That's the goal, anyway. So, we're going up here, and we got starboard tacker, port tacker. What's the port tacker gonna do when he gets here?
Go under.
Gonna bear away, and then go back. Now, we talked about other options. If you can cross, if you're the port tacker and you can cross, then you can come in here and tack there. What does that do?
Put you on starboard and then
Put you on starboard with this guy. It's called the lee bow. And what does that do?
Gives them bad air.
Gives them bad air in a way. It actually changes the air, so then they become in a header, or they become into a header, and it's disturbed air, so they don't. You don't give them real bad air. Stay there. Now they're blanketed, right? They're blanketed. Why don't we want to go here?
That's illegal, right?
It's not illegal if you stay clear, but it's risky. And the risk is that if you don't have your sails full, and he's coming up this way, and he has to avoid you, then you fouled him. If your tack goes slow and are going slow, you had a bad tack, but your sails are in, and he comes in and he runs into the back of you, that's his problem, because your sails are full. But you have to give him opportunity and room to stay clear. So if you're going to do it, cross here or cross here, not in front. Should be able to go straight. Because if you screw up the tack, you can be in trouble, especially if you can't get the jib in. The jib fouls on the other side, you get an overwrap. Now you're just sitting in front of him. Now you're a dead duck, because now you fouled. So you tack here. If you can cross, and now you're looking at two boats converging, if you know you can cross, you can do a lee bow. If you can't, if you don't think you can cross, then you don't think you can do a lee bow. If you're really, really good, and the way Dave Dellenbaugh explained it on Monday, he said, if you're gonna hit like this, there's a chance you'll make it. If you're going to hit like this, there's less chance. And if you're going to hit like this, there's no chance. Because what's going to happen? You're going to get over here, and you're going to tack, and he's just going to drive right over you. Not that you're going to hit him. Obviously, you're not going to hit him, but you're not going to be in a good position. So if you come in, and you know you can tack, because a collision point would be like this, you're crossing it. It's a good chance that if you do a good tack, you're going to give him bad air. But what is that going to force him to do? Tack right. All right? So he's going to tack and he's going to tack. If this is our plan and the right's favored, what do we just do? We force them to the better side of the course. So what would you do in this situation? You can cross him. Cross him. Cross him and let him go. Cross him and just let him go. He's going to go left. And you've already determined that that's not the best place to go.
How about duck under him?
Well, if you can cross him, you don't want to duck under.
Right. But if you can't.
But if you can't cross him, then you just duck under him.
Rather than tack.
Right. rather than tack.
You was saying on Monday that if you know you can't cross them, aim for midships and then duck them at the last second.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna go into
Yeah.
that. We're not- that's too far advanced.
Yeah.
A good lee bow, a bad lee bow, or a good duck and a bad duck. Or, you know, different tactical reasons. I'll let Dave explain that. I don't wanna go there. So, what was the most important thing we learned just now? What's the most important thing you learned?
Have a strategy beforehand.
Have a strategy. Picking the correct side. Right? It takes homework to pick the correct side. You gotta know what the tide's doing. You gotta look at some kind of tide chart, whether it's electronic. A lot of the new electronics, they'll show the tides and have arrows, where it's stronger, where it's least. That doesn't always come straight down the sound. Well, when you're around here, it's gonna curve. You know, you got Bikini Island here, you got a river here. It's gonna turn. Where is it usually the strongest, the current?
In the middle.
In the middle or in the deepest water? Right? In the deepest water, there's more volume going through. You go, anybody ever sail down to New York City and Hellgate? Hellgate's, 400 feet deep at some spots. When the current's ripping there, it's ripping. It gets narrow, and all of this water has to go through a channel this big. But it's deep. That's why it's deep, because it's only this big. Right? So and that's where the current is the most prevalent, is in the deepest water. Where do you find all this information?
On your chart. On your chart.
What's that? On your chart? Well, yeah. If you have a chart plotted that tells it to you, that's fine. It's Eldridge. Anybody ever look at an Eldridge or know what an Eldridge is? It's a little yellow book. It's got all the charts for Long Island Sounds, and you have to figure out. It's not so easy to figure out and be right, because it bases it on a few points, the race, things like that. So 4 hours after the race, high tide, this is what's going to happen. 3 hours, and they'll have a chart. Every time you turn the page, it's a different hour for that section of Long Island Sound. You can actually, if you're doing distance races, and I've done it, be in places when the tide is prevalently going one way, and you tuck into a corner, it swirls around and goes the other. And you can get relief from the tide, which is great. When everybody else is sailing in a knot or a knot and a half of tide, and you're sailing in maybe a quarter of a knot with you, that's a big, you can cover some land over those people. Out here, when we're racing here at Cedar Point, the tide splits the Bikini Island. It's less tide on the shore than it is out in the middle. So if the tide is coming from east to west, and we're going across the sound, let's have a big tide marker here. The wind's coming from the top of the board. If I'm going this way, am I with the tide or against the tide?
Against.
Tide is pushing me where? To the north. If I'm over here, where is it pushing me?
Way.
Away from the north. Exactly. So you have to understand where you are in that tide. If the beach is over here and you get out of the current, what do you have to worry about? Depth, maybe? How close can you get to the beach? Most of our marks have another 10 boat lengths to go, 10 or 15 boat lengths to go, some or more, into the beach before you have trouble. Unless you're the Swan 45, which draws 9.5 feet. Most people at 6 feet, 7 feet can get pretty close. But what's giving you that indication? You got two things to look at. And you should do this before you start the race, not during the race. How close can I get to the beach? The mark is N. You have to go around N. How close can I get to the beach in there? Or we're going up to K, and I want to go left. How close can I get into the beach? How much past N, how much past M towards the beach we can get? You should know that before you start. Because if you start, if you try to do that while you're racing and you're driving, then you're really not going fast because you're not paying attention to telltales, wind, and other environmental things. So you have to make sure you have a plan, know the water, and what's all that called? Local knowledge. When you go to a regatta somewhere else, and the guys from that place, they have the local knowledge. Most people are more than happy to share that with you. I've only had one instance in my entire sailing career where somebody gave me bad information when I asked them.
Still alive?
Huh?
Is he still alive?
He's no longer sailing. That's not my fault. He's still alive. It's nothing to kill somebody over. But I got to tell you, you get a bad reputation.
I know.
Right? It's not really sportsmanlike to tell people something somewhere, give people bad information. So most people will give you good information. John, for example, we have a regatta here for Flying Scots. Do people ask you a question? You tell them the truth?
Absolutely.
You give away all your,
I want to beat them fair and square.
you give them all your secrets, right?
And, you know, Steve, I mean, your conversation is a lot, goes back to, I missed last week, but the first week you talked about preparation,
Right.
right? And so a lot of the success is preparation. When I go off-site to a national or regional regatta, I get the charts if we're in the ocean. I understand what the tides are. When I come here to race at Cedar Point, I get up in the morning and I study what the wind is predicted to do, what it is doing. I know what the tides are. I already know, before I even get out of my car, I already have a very good plan with my crew of what upwind is going to be and what downwind is going to be.
Does it change?
It changes when we get out there, if it needs to change.
Right.
Right, but we already have a very good starting point, right? On week one, you talked about the raincoat, and the guy not bringing his rain,
Right.
right? So, if you want to have great success or good success, a little preparation before you get to the club is going to be important.
Exactly. Talk about it the day before. What's the tide going to be? Think about it. I mean, if you're racing on Sunday, you got all day Saturday to figure it out. You can even take your boat out and scout it out. Now, how many people here know where all the Cedar Point marks are without using a GPS? Yeah, there's 3 of us. Right? You know, when I found out where the boat, where all the marks were and got it in my head, I got in the power boat and I went from mark to mark to mark to mark, all the way around the course. And I looked back at the previous mark. I said, okay, what's the relation to these marks? What relation do they have to one another? And it really put a clear picture in my head doing that. So if you can do that, do it. If you can't, you'll have
Everybody
to.
knows that the racing instructions are down next to the water fountain, right?
Well, we didn't get to the race instructions yet,
Well,
but yeah.
I'm just saying, but it has the chart in the back.
I have a chart here. I have a chart here that I'll give you in 2 weeks of the racing area. I don't have enough. I have to make some more. I don't have enough, but I will make more so there's enough for everybody when we get to that point. That's session 5.
Isn't it alphabetical order somewhat from Campo Beach?
Somewhat.
Counterclockwise?
Somewhat. Not exactly. There's a few oddities, but we'll get into that when we talk about the sailing. All right. Now, we got halfway up the leg. Our windward mark. What am I drawing here? Ley lines. What's a ley line? Ley line is an imaginary line between 2 points. And usually going from a close hold course from a certain point to the mark is a ley line. Do we want to sail outside the ley line? Occasionally. Occasionally. Why? When would we sail past the ley line? When would we sail past the ley line and come back? Current? Wind shifts? What you think the wind's going to do? If you think the wind's going to shift and push that ley line, if there's a lot of current and there's a little bit of wind, you might want to do it. Or if it's light air, you might not want to point so high. You want to go faster to the mark. If there's other boats in the way, sometimes it's an advantage to go a boat length or 2 beyond the ley line. Not usually. Now, where do you want to hit the ley line? Way back here? In here? What happens when you get on the ley line that far away? A mile away, say.
Long way to go.
Hmm?
Long way to go.
You got a long way to go on that tack. What happens if the wind shifts? The wind shifts this way. Does the ley line change? You can't tack, you know. If you're up here, you'll have to, you know. You're not going to get there fast doing that. So what happens, what most people like to do, and the safest bet, is to not get to the ley line until you're 10 or 15 boat lengths away from it, from the mark. If you're 100 boat lengths away, if you get lifted, you went too far. You went too far left. If you're lifted here, and yeah, you can fall off and reach, right? I got the sail on the wrong side, but you can fall off and reach, but if you're lifted, then you went too far to the left. You sailed extra distance you didn't need to. If you're headed, you ended up sailing across the course like this. You're not making any progress to windward. So the idea is to sail the lift, get over here. You tack under the headlock thing, and you got lifted, and now you're going straight. This guy was over here when he tacked. You were over here when he tacked. You went extra boat length or 2 or 3 or 5 if you went too far. So it's not a good idea to set up for the lay on the ley line until you're pretty sure that that ley line's not going to change. And that would be, 10 or 15 boat lengths away in a big boat. Even in a small boat, it would be about the same. Smaller boat lengths, but now, why am I doing this? What is that circle?
Three boat lengths from the mark.
It's 3 boat lengths from the mark. What does that mean?
Kind of cut through your
How manure?
sail shape. Cast, rod, or
If I'm one of these 2 boats, I'm in danger. Why?
Because you
Because
don't
you
make
can't go in and squeeze in here and expect this guy to give you room. Doesn't have to give you room. Now, do you force it and hit him? Nah, because that'll get you thrown out too. If you're ever in this situation, and I was in this situation last year twice, I got hit both times. He came in here, and it took 2 protest hearings and an appeal to straighten it out. But this boat was in the right, this guy tacked in. Even if he tacked in out here, he was short of the ley line, couldn't make it. So when he caught up, he was trying to pinch, and he clipped the back of my boat. Because if he didn't clip the back of my boat, he was going to hit the mark. What should he have done? No, he shouldn't have hit the mark. What should he have done?
Look behind.
If he came up here and said, oh crap, I'm not going to make it, you bail out. But then there was more boats coming back here, so he was in, and that was the problem. I wasn't the only boat there. So if you're in this situation, what do you have to do? You have to duck all of the boats, and then tackle, come on over. You'll be out here, right? You may have gotten there close to first, but you can't get in there because there's no room. You got 3 boats on starboard tack going into a windward mark, close haul, on the ley line. Now, if a boat's up here, can you come in here?
Sure.
Sure. But if the boats are on the ley line, come in here, what do you have to do? Deduct them. Deduct them all. Now, if this boat's not here, and it's like this, can you come in here and do that?
If you have to
As long
speed.
as you don't affect this guy. As long as you don't make him turn his tiller, turn his wheel, you're good. The moment he has to avoid you by going higher than he normally has to do, or lower than he normally would, and whose choice is it to turn the wheel? Is it your choice or his choice? In a situation that you're coming, we'll get into this in the rules more, but if you're in a port starboard situation, and this is a good sailor, you can get away with more, because you know what he's going to do. You know that if you come in here, he's not going to flinch. But if this is a guy with a big boat who just never had a boat before and it's his second race on the water, you come in here like this, he's going to go all over the place. And guess what? You're wrong. His experience will get you in, his inexperience will get you in trouble. Or his experience will let you get away with something because you know what he's going to do. Right? When I'm sailing against people that I've been sailing with for a long time, or they're sailing against me, boy, they can take a chance and get in there. That's happened to me. And I'm like, whoa, that's close. He made it. But I didn't flinch. I didn't get scared. I didn't panic. If I panic, it's on him. But he knows I'm not going to panic, so he's going to take that chance. But if it's someone you don't know, or you're the new person, don't take the chance. Don't take the chance. Why? Coming in third is better than getting disqualified. Coming in fifth is better than getting disqualified and counting to 13 or 14 or whatever it is you count. So there's no point in taking a chance. And we're supposed to have fun, right? The whole idea of this whole sport is to make it relaxing, not tense. You're tense all the time.
Well, at least I'm close enough you can see.
I heard. All right. So what's the point of this in the 3 boat length circle? Do all your maneuvering out here. Set your boat up before you get there. And that's the point of today's conversation. So you want to set your boat up to be on a ley line. Now, is it okay to come in on floor tack ley line? If you're the fastest boat in the fleet and there's nobody else there, no problem. And one of the things that, and even in one design, there's boats that are faster than others. Just by the way they're tuned, by the new sails and the bottom, everybody knows who the slow boat is. Everybody knows who the fast boat is. So there's things you can do if you're the faster boat that you can't do. You come off a starting line and you're in bad air. If you're the slower boat, what do you got to do? You got to clear your air. If you're the big boat, you just keep going and just truck right past it. It's more forgiving to be the faster boat. Everybody wants to be, or should want to be, the fastest boat in his division. Is everybody the fastest boat in his division? No, only one guy. Only one guy in each division is the fastest boat. Now, you may have boats that are equal. I mean, even if you're sailing Thistles or Lightnings, you got 2 that win every race, and they're out in front all the time, and there's 4 or 5 that battle it out, and then there's one that's always in the back. Now, what is the result? What is the reason that those things happen? Session 1, planning, preparation. Session 2, starting. Session 3, upwind. Right? So any questions? Got to be a lot of questions. Nobody?
What's the name of the rule? What's the number of this rule? 3 lengths boat?
Oh, I don't know. We'll get into that. I'm really bad at memorizing the numbers, the rules. I know what they are. Now,
So Steve,
Yeah.
if I may,
go ahead.
right? So you talked about you're the slowest boat and the Steve Longo is stealing your air at the start. What do you do if you're behind Steve Longo?
Well, how much slower are you? How much slower are you supposed to be? Are you slow because you're sailing poorly, or are you slow because your boat's smaller? Or there's a difference.
I guess where I was going with this is, right, if, on my boat, one of the things that we have is we have a phrase for the last 50 years I've been using, right, and it's KTFBM. KTFBM.
KCFPM?
KTFBM. Keep the fucking boat moving. Right? So you can't do anything if the boat isn't moving.
That's a very good point.
So if, some of the simplest things that you learn is when in doubt, let it out, right? Let the sail out, put your bow down, try to get the boat moving, right? So if Steve Longo is coming and he's taking all my air, right? Now I'm dead in the water, I can't do anything, okay? So it's important to always remember when you're sailing, and going upwind is very important, to always keep the boat moving, right? And when we get ourselves in a pickle on my boat, we just start murmuring, KTFBM, KTFBM, right? And it just is letting the sails out, it's bearing down, it's getting up boat speed, and then going back to the plane, right? So mentioned earlier, it's important to have a plan and have a plan when you're going out. If your plan is to have fun, show up, get on your boat, go have fun, right? If your plan is that you want to try to get competitive in racing and things of that sort, you have to have a plan before you even get to the boat, right? And then, you know, the plan does change a little bit, but I look at 4 or 5 different weather apps before I even get to the club. And if they're all in sync, I have a pretty good idea of when I get out here what it's going to be. I understand where the tides are going to be, right? And you mentioned before, going to distant regattas and things of that sort. Once you get onto the club property, you have the flagpole. It's telling you what the wind's doing here, right? Which is often very different than out there, right?
You have a flagpole at the end of on the corner. As you turn left on the corner,
Our talk's got a flagpole.
there's a flagpole right there. That's one of the first things I look at. I look at the water and I look at the flagpole.
Unless you are here at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a good chance that there's other boats that are already out there. Taking all of that information is going to help guide you what you're going to do. I very rarely look at the boats that are in the race area. I'm always looking upwind to see what's coming.
But if you're in a fleet starting behind another fleet, you can see what those other boats are doing. You can see the boats ahead of you. Are they pointed higher than me? Are they pointed lower than me? Or are they getting knocked over? I mean, I've seen boats ahead of me get knocked on their ear and they just start heeling over. What does that tell me? There's a puff coming. You know? There's a puff coming. I better be ready for that puff. Because the person that's not ready for the puff is going to slow down.
The other thing, if you're not sure what's happening, just stay in the middle, right? Don't go out to the sides.
Don't hit the lines here.
Stay in the middle.
Stay in here.
Until it becomes apparent to you what you should be doing, right? If you run out all the way to the right or you run out all the way to the left, you're just going to get normally further behind. Does a lefty come in and lift you up to the mark? Yeah, I've seen it happen, right? But it's more luck than it is skill, right? Keep the boat moving, and on the race course, if you're not sure what's going to happen, just stay in the middle of the course and work your way up.
So, for staying in the middle of the course is a safe bet. You may not be able to take advantage of something out here as much, but you won't lose someone on the other side. And if it's shifting back and forth, if you can stay what they call in phase, what is in phase? In phase means you're sailing all the lifts and tacking on all the headers. So you're going to do that shorter distance to the mark. If you can stay in the middle and stay in phase, you'll always be in good shape. Now, like he said, some guy goes out here, they can get lucky. Blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. We used to race against a guy, when I had the Express 37, he had an Express 37. He was known to bang the corners. That's what we call it. You go way out here on this side, or you go out on this side to the ley lines early. It's called banging the corners. That's what they're doing. They're going all the way to the corner of the course. Sometimes it's an advantage to bang the corner. If there's more wind over here, it could be an advantage. Have I banged the corners on purpose? Yes. Has it always worked? Most of the time, because I'm usually going there for a reason.
What do you think of the strategy of identifying who the winning boats usually are and just copying what they do?
Brilliant.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. It's a good strategy to start. But what's going to happen if you follow someone all the time, are you ever going to beat them? Probably not. Because by the time they're doing something, it takes time to get to you, And is that still the right thing to do? Maybe or maybe not. But if you're in Division 3 and Division 5 and 6 went off before you, or 4 and 5 went off before you, and they were all going right, what is that going to tell you? Maybe I should go right. I'll have to rethink my thoughts about going left. And what will I examine? I'll examine the current. I'll look around for wind. Is there more wind to the right? Are the puffs coming from the right? That's a big thing that people don't realize. I said, okay, I'm sailing here, and then there's a big puff. You can see it coming down, not directly downwind. You'll see the puff coming from a little bit on the right. That means the puffs are coming to the right. Who's going to get the puff first? The boat on the right or the boat on the left? Right. The boat on the right is going to get to the puff first. Now, when the puff dies, they'll lose it first, but they're already ahead. It may even out, it may not. So you always want to go, if the puffs are coming, the puffs are coming from here, and you can see the ripples in the water, right? And they're not coming from straight up wind. And then every time there's a puff, it's a header or a lift, it makes you go right, then you know you can plan that. When there's no puff, I'll be on this tack. When there's a puff, I want to be on this tack because it's lifting me up. Right? So if I see a puff coming and I'm on this tack, what do I say? Tack. Ready about. Helms to lee. Boom. I'm over. Take advantage of that lift up to the mark. It's a lot to think about, and it becomes instinctive the more you do it. Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I've been doing this for 35 years, every weekend. And at least one day during the week, sometimes two. I had one year I sailed every day except Monday. I was on the water. Happened for a few years. At the end of the season, I was tired. I can tell you, at the end of the season, you get tired. But what did that do for me? It gave me more experience and more time on the water, and that's the key. The more practice. Arnold Palmer said, I'd rather be lucky than skillful any day of the week. But the thing is, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And it's true. It may seem like dumb luck, but the more you practice, you can recognize things a little bit quicker, sooner, and maybe before somebody else, and be able to take advantage of a certain situation. If you just come out every Wednesday and you don't even look at your boat until 5 minutes before the start, are you going to be as ready as some guy that went out Tuesday to practice, or Monday to practice, or sailed on Sunday? You're not going to be as ready. So if you want to be good at this sport, you got to be in all of the races. You got to participate. Right? The guy that just does Wednesday nights, he can be okay. He's not in the top 3 at the end of the year because he's not in the boat. He's not racing the boat enough. So that's why we have, in Perth at the club, we have Sundays, sometimes Saturdays, but mostly Sundays and Wednesdays. People that do more races, or someone that comes every Wednesday, because they plan their season. They come every Wednesday. They don't miss a race. What happens to them? They have a good race. They have a bad race. They have an okay race. They have a pretty good race. They have a good race. They have a bad race. And a really bad race. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many do I count for the series?
6.
4. 7 plus 1 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. So I get to throw 3 out. Throwing out a 10, throwing out an 8, I'm throwing out an 8. How do I look with a 1, 2, 1? 1, 2, 1, 3.
Math class here, buddy.
Well, maybe you should sign up for math class. that's part of preparation. It's preparing your season. One of the, let's see, where are we? All right, we're getting to the windward mark. We've noticed a few things going upwind. We either went to the right side for current, or we went to the wrong side for current, and we took a beating. What is that going to tell me going the other way? What do we have to do before we get to that windward mark? We have to plan our downwind mark. Plan our downwind sailing. Now, if you're doing a triangle, you don't have a lot of choices. What do you have to do in non-spinnaker when you're planning? What do you have to do to prepare for your downwind leg?
Get the spinnaker out on.
If you're not sailing spinnaker, you don't have to raise sails. You're using the same sail, or maybe you're not. I don't know. If it was real windy, and you're sailing upwind, and you have a small jib up, and when you go downwind, you want more jib, you might want to change the jib. It's part of planning your leg. Maybe you'll change to the bigger jib. Or the wind's dying. Right? Upwind is the smaller sail, better, and heavy air going upwind because you're not leaning over. Or maybe you put a reef in the main because you're heeled over. You want to plan on shaking that reef out. You want to plan getting around the mark. Everybody's going off on a reach, that reaching mark, right? Or maybe a run if the wind shifted. Do I want to be here, here, or here? Do I want to sail high for a couple of minutes and then go down? Sail over a slower boat that got to the windward mark ahead of me? Maybe, but you have to plan it. You have to figure it out. What's the best thing for me? If you stay behind the slow boat, you'll give him bad air, and you'll end up passing him anyway. But what's this guy going to do? What's the small boat going to do in this situation? It's getting blanketed, right? He's going to either head up or head down to get out of that wind shadow. All right, so you got to know who's behind you coming around the mark. So you got to pay attention. Who's behind you coming around the mark? And if you sail the spinnaker, you got to do almost the same thing. But there's ways out of it. The ways out of being blanketed are different. Because us who have spinnakers, we come around the mark. I came around before him and he's blanketing me. What can I do? I can jibe away and go the other way. Now, if the right side is favored going up, is the right side going to be favored going down? Or it would be the left side going down? Is this side always favored or not? And that answer is it depends. And the answer is no, because it depends on why was it favored. Was it favored for more wind? And how much more wind? Was it favored for current? Or how much current? If it's a lot of current, if the current's going this way,
You don't want to be there.
you come around here, do we want to stay in the heavy current?
Yeah.
You know, if it's more over here, we want to stay on the left.
Yeah.
If it's left, if it's even, it doesn't matter. But if it's more on one side or less on the other, then we want to pick the side that's to our advantage. If the wind is more over here, I'll come around here and we'll jibe and we'll go towards the wind. Now, if I'm coming around here and I'm sailing a header, is that good or bad? Come on, someone's got to have this answer. Under spinnaker, I'm sailing a header. Is that good or bad?
Good.
Good. Why is it good? Because it gives me a better angle to the mark at a closer, more of a beam reach, closer to a beam reach. A lot of stuff to think about. How do we get downwind? And we'll talk all about downwind sailing next week. Upwind sailing. What's the most important thing upwind? And John alluded to it. I'll give you a hint. The most important thing sailing upwind. Come on, someone's going to say it. Speed.
Thank you.
Speed. Keep the boat moving. Okay? We don't need that word. We're clean. I never said that word in my life. You ever hear me say that on the boat?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Damn it.
Now that was imagination.
I thought it a lot. All right? Keep the boat moving. It's so important to go fast. What makes us go fast upwind? The right sails for the conditions, right? If you left the number 1 on the dock and the wind died, guess what? We're going to be slow, right? If you left the number 3 on the dock and the wind picked up, it's going to be, just as bad. Because when a boat heels over, which way does it go? Boat's really heeling over. What's happening? Going sideways. So, my boat's really heeling over, and I'm going like this. I'm not going like this. I'm going like this. Right? I'm going a little sideways. Because the keel stops you from moving laterally. The keel is the center of lateral resistance, which makes the boat go forward. You get lift off the keel, but if the keel is not in the water, it's not doing anything. So speed, the right equipment, what else? Rig tuning. Are you tuned for light air? Are you tuned for heavy air? Are you tuned for middle air? Do you change your tune? Is your rig in the middle? Do I go faster on starboard tack than port tack? If I'm going faster on starboard tack than port tack, most modern boats, that's a problem because they've tried to balance weight on both sides between batteries and water tanks and all kinds of things. Kitchen equipment. I'm talking a stove, sink. Not. How many people sail with pots and pans on their boat? Pots and pans. Pots and pans. Silverware. You have silverware in your? You do not, John.
My wife.
This is more for big. Little boats don't have pots and pans.
But you can have plastic spoons. They weigh.
All right, if you have to sail with pots and pans for your wife, 1 frying pan and a small one, and 1 pot to boil water. If she can't live with that, then you're in trouble.
You gotta leave it at the dock.
Now, people go to the extreme. They take everything off their boat. They take the cushions off. They take the table out. They take
Drain the water.
the doors off the head. They take the doors off the cabin.
Ice and beer too?
Huh?
Ice and beer as well?
Well, ice. Well, yeah. We know you're slow. We know you got a lot of ice and beer. See, that's because I know you. I know that. But yeah, if you have 3 cases of beer on board, you're never going to drink 3 cases of beer on a Wednesday night. Maybe 1. If you drink 3 cases of beer on a Wednesday night, you have more problems than sailboat. So don't have 3 cases of beer. That's part of preparation. Have the right amount. Now, do you need to have water on the boat?
Yes.
Yeah, you should have at least 5 gallons of water in your water tank. You should have, at least, depends on how long you're going to be out. If you're going to be out all day, you need 2 or 3, 4 bottles of water per person on the boat, or the equivalent. In a jug, maybe people bring their own water bottles. Whatever you decide. But don't have 20 for each person on the boat. That's just more weight. How many people have the anchor on the bow? Not a good place.
It's safety, man.
That's not safe.
It is.
Well, safety wise, so you can cut through the other boat when you hit them?
No.
What is the safety?
You lose
If you lose, you're a sailboat, man.
Well, you lose that stuff and you're not saying.
What are you gonna, then you can always put an anchor. I'm not saying don't have an anchor, you have to have the anchor. But does it have to be on the bow, hanging off the front of the boat?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
The anchor locker.
Oh, no, I don't have it.
Is that the best place for it?
In the anchor locker?
Yeah.
Well, that could, yeah. that's where
It could
goes.
be, that's possible. If you have no other place on the boat to put it,
So
you
what's
can
your
put it in.
recommendation?
But is it hanging off the bow?
No, it's an anchor locker.
Never should be hanging off the bow.
So
At
where-
minimum in the locker,
Where
right?
do you want the anchor?
I want it out of the bow. I don't want it anywhere near the bow.
Center of the boat is a better place for it?
Down in the bottom of the boat towards the keel, that's weight.
Right.
Weight in the bow is not great, right? Why are all the bow guys small, thin? Bow guys and bow girls, they're all small and thin, short and thin. Because you don't want the weight on the bow. What else can we do going upwind to make our boat faster? We tuned the rig, we got the anchor out of the bow, we got the silverware off the boat, crew position. Now a lot of boats going upwind need weight on the rail to keep the boat flat. They're over canvassed in a way that they need weight on the rail. When I had the Express 37, I needed 880-pound guys on the rail to be perfect. I really never did. I always sailed with a mixed crew, so I rarely had 8 guys on the rail to begin with. And I like that. I don't have that many friends. I don't want that many friends. Some people buy these giant boats. I'm like, why are you buying that big boat? Oh, so people can come. I don't want that many friends. I have a little boat. But you know, if your boat, the J29, requires, you know, 5 big guys on the rail, 5 or 6 big guys on the rail. My X37 is 14,000 pounds. I got a lot in the keel. I don't need a lot of people, not a lot of weight on the rail. It's one of the reasons I like the boat. I can sail with less people, and it can go fast with less people. Is your boat good in light air or heavy air? Are you good in light air or heavy air? Try to improve those characteristics so that it's a balance for what we have here, which is mostly light air. What's the common wind speed around here on a Wednesday night? John?
7 to 9.
7 to 9? Does it get 14 a lot? Maybe twice a year? Does it have no wind? Well, yeah, a couple times a year. We had one year, it was either, one year out of 16 races, we had 5. About 5 years ago. Why did we only have 5 races? Well, there was either no wind or thunderstorms with too much wind. It's either blowing 30 or nothing for most of the season. What is the most important thing we can do to make our boat go fast upwind?
Set the sails correctly.
Set the sails correctly.
Clean the bottom.
Make sure you know where your main's supposed to be. Make sure you know where your jib is supposed to be. Does the jib track move? Because I know it can be a 2 feet difference between light and heavy air for me. And it makes a difference upwind because I'm not hitting, if it's wrong, I'm not hitting my optimal speed upwind. I have a target speed upwind. Everybody have polars for their boat? They know what their target speed is? Well, try to find out. Call your sailmaker and say, I need to know what my target speed should be on this boat. And if you have, you know, a J105 or a Beneteau 36.7, those numbers are everywhere. If you have a more obscure boat, you may have to do some digging. Well, what kind of boat is it? Let me find another boat that's similar, if we can find numbers for that. But if I have a Sabre 36, those numbers are everywhere. Right? If I have a Swan 42, the numbers are everywhere. If I have a Swan 41, the numbers are nowhere. John?
So, I primarily sail gates, right? And I also work, do ungodly amount of traffic, right? So everybody understands that the sail and the centerboard or the keel are both foils, correct? Right? And you're trying to create lift in order to propel the boat forward. Okay? So when I talk to different classes and people about it, I like to think about what I see out the plane window, right? When a plane is landing and when a plane is taking off, the wing is cupped, right? It's creating a lot of lift. You got air going over this, you got negative pressure on the inside, and it's creating lift, right? As the plane gets going faster, it flattens out, right? It's the same thought process that you should try to look at your sail plan when you're sailing upwind, okay? So a lot of times I see people, we're talking about following Steve, okay? I'm going to fake it till I make it. Well, Steve is setting up his boat and setting up his sails to be optimal, a perfect foil, or as best foil as he can make it, to go upwind. If you're following him and you're just cranking in the jig, right, and you're not setting it correctly, you're actually going to go slow, right? Because you're braking. If I take, this is the jib and this is the main, and I take the jib and I go from this to this, I'm creating a negative pressure on the back of the sail, which is slowing me down, right? So Steve talked about the sailmaker. There's more than just following the guy, right, the champion, and saying, right, I'm just going to follow whatever he does, I'm going to follow him, and you're following farther and farther back. You have to look at the sails, right? Talk to your sailmaker. Most sailmakers are more than happy to come in and talk with you, but understand how to set the sails correctly. And again, if you're going slow or feel slow, let it out. Bear down a little bit. Get the speed back in the boat, and then you'll be able to move up. I see a lot of people pinching. Well, this boat's pointing up to the wind way higher than us. Well, they have speed. If you don't have speed, you can't head up to the
Yeah, the faster you go, the closer you can get to the wind. So if you find yourself in a situation like John said, and you're not up to speed, fall down 5 degrees. Let the sail out a little bit until you see it luff, and then pull it back in. That's, pick up speed, but keep the boat moving.
ATFBM. You'll be saying it with something.
So, any questions? I think we pretty much covered most of upwind that we want to cover. Is there more to learn about upwind sailing? Yeah, there's tactics. I mean, Dave Perry had a upwind tactics session on Monday. A few of you were there. John, did you attend?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. A few people did. A few people that were registered for the class attended. I know Greg Breniger was on the call, and a few others. And they're going towards being prepared, because I'm sure he learned something. Any other thing you can get your hands on? North Sails is having or it's not North Sails anymore, North U, which was sold to ASA, American Sailing Association. Seminars, and they're all on Zoom, and you can replay them if you miss one, and they do a better job than I do up here. They're professionals. I'm just skirting by, I'm just sharing my knowledge. They're professionals. They charge money. You get what you pay for. Not that you won't get anything out of this, but the club's paying for you to be here. The lights are on. All the materials I paid for, the new board. me having the right tool to teach this class is having this board that's magnetic. The board we had over there wasn't magnetic. Wasn't the right tool for the job. Down at the leeward mark is a little different. There's a lot of things that can be done at the leeward mark. A good leeward mark rounding John, have you ever passed a boat at the leeward mark because they did a lousy mark rounding and you did a good one?
Absolutely.
You go right past them and you shoot past them. It's not even close. It's like they're standing still.
One of my favorite memories of going around the Windward mark is about, got skunked at the start and probably 20 boats around the Windward mark and just absolutely no wind, and we just went 200 yards to the outside of them, past them all, and right, so just keep the boat moving.
Thinking about that, I was in a Vanguard, when I was sailed Vanguards, I was in a race against all these fancy hotshot Cedar Point Vanguard sailors. I was in a club boat, and they were all piled up at the Windward mark. I did what John just said. I saw them there, I was way behind, because I was by far not the fastest Vanguard sailor. I went around them all, and I got around over here, and 200 yards away, or 100 yards away, there was a little bit of breeze, and they're all dying right here. And I came over here, and because I went made a big circle around them, and they're all in a pack. What happens in a pack? Do you want to be in the pack? No, you don't want to be in the pack. In the pack's a lot of disturbed air, so you don't want to be in the pack. Came around the pack, and they all looked at me and said, "Go, Steve, go." They rooted for me because they knew I was the newbie. And if I see you guys out there, I will root for you. Being, if you start passing me, I'm going to give you a high five. You know, I'll be screaming and hollering, "Go, go, go."
The first time.
The first time.